What's up, heathens and demons? And I totally just played my intro, not the Seeing Red intro, but I think the Seeing Red intro is jacked up. What's up, heathens and demons? You beautiful, blasphemous people. Welcome back to the Rage. This is Seeing Red. Allie's here. Grumpy Old Dude is here. What's up, Allie?
Hey all, so I'm only going to be here for about an hour. We moved the stream back a little bit, so I would be able to be here for at least an hour. Knox says he wants to go for an hour to an hour and a half. But I have counseling on Tuesdays at 6 my time, which is about an hour from now. So, between 5 and 10 minutes beforehand, I'll probably leave. But I'm here for now because I wanted to come and chat with Grumpy Old Dude. I haven't actually gotten a chance to meet him, and I know that the two of them were going to collab a little while before I even became a part of this channel. So I wanted to be here to come and chat about cults and stuff, because I guess that's what we're talking about. So
yeah, it's going to be a good conversation. What's up, Grumpy Old Dude? Introduce yourself. Show your channel. I've got his link in the description below.
I know, Knock did it all by himself this time. Yeah, no,
I did it this time. I didn't need any help. But and he deals with hate groups, so I think it's a really interesting channel. So check him out. What's up, Grumpy Old Dude?
All right, not too much here. How you guys doing?
Oh, real good, real good. Now that we're starting and no tech issues.
Yeah. So I am the Grumpy Old Dude, and as Knox said, my primary focus is on hate groups, mainly because I am a former white supremacist. I was a member of the World Church of the Creator, and I was also a prison gang member for SPS, which is State Prison Skinheads in New Jersey. And I did that for about 20 years. And then finally decided to look at some real science and real history. And I don't like being lied to. So now I'm going against hate groups. And since I have that knowledge, I'm pretty much debunking everything they claim for their science.
And that's really awesome, because it does seem, and I was in prison myself, so I saw it firsthand with my own eyes. A lot of the recruitment happens in prison.
Well, you got a bunch of vulnerable people from the exact demographics that these people target, all clustered together with nothing better to do with their lives. That's basically like prison is literally you ain't got nothing to do.
I've often said, like, when I went to prison, I landed on what was called Barber Hall. It was a folk hall. It was a folk part of the prison. So I was literally put into that gang just by where I landed. But if I'd have landed on one of two other halls, it would have been an Aryan hall, and it might have been a complete different story for me coming out of prison.
Yeah, when I went to prison, like I said, it was in New Jersey, and you got to remember, this is way back in 1991 when I went to jail. This is a long time ago.
I think mine was like 99. I was still like, I think I was like 20.
Yeah. I was 19 when I got arrested, and the thing out in New Jersey is it was all gangs, and it was all racially motivated. Whether it be Latin Kings or the Nation of Islam, whatever, it was all racially motivated. And I just kind of got sucked into that whole lifestyle for a long time.
Well, when you're in such a confined area, that's one of the easiest ways to organize is, you can look at somebody and immediately see, like, that's who they are.
Well, and it's not even that. It becomes survival in prison. You've got to make friends. You've got to make allies. And so a lot of people in prison that stand on their own get taken advantage of. in a lot of different ways. So pretty much where you land in prison is where you're going to make your friends, and that's going to pretty much dictate your prison experience until you leave.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of times. I did it on my own for a couple of years, and that was actually when I started becoming an atheist. And that was one of the things that got me into the whole creativity movement, because they are an atheist group.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know SPLC has them listed as pantheist, but they're not.
Yeah, I think
Damien
it's
Adhope,
they some members claim that the white race is their religion, so they label them as pantheist. But yeah, when I was looking for when I was doing Crazy Cults, I was looking for an atheist cult, and that's how I discovered the creativity movement.
Yeah, Damien Adhope and I did a video where we brought them up, and the definition for pantheism is basically you believe in something that creates everything, whether it be the universe, nature, or whatever. And that's not really what creativity believes. They do believe in evolution and the Big Bang Theory and all, but then they twist their science saying that there's different species and subspecies of humans, and that's not how evolution works.
No. And even Darwin didn't go there. I know a couple people have tried to go there, but like, what's his name? Charles Murray, I believe his name is. Bell curve. Even he says, what I wrote was taken out of context. I was not saying the white race is better. I know, Allie, but I'm just saying that's what he said since.
Okay, what he said.
I've got a copy of it in my room. I've read it too. It's atrocious. But that's what he said since on what's his name's the really big atheist guy, Sam Harris's podcast.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, Sam Harris had Charles Murray on a couple times.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and I would say that as far as the bell curve goes, I'm just going to say he absolutely was saying that. Like, it doesn't fucking matter what spin he puts on it. It was absolutely saying that.
He deserved the criticism he got, without a doubt. Sam Harris was kind of fucked up for trying to rationalize it away.
No, kind of. Sam Harris is a racist.
Sam Harris is not the Sam Harris of old. We'll go there.
Yeah, my big thing right now is going after different groups than the one I used to belong to, and I think that's mainly because I want to expose more undercover groups, like Creativity Alliance. They'll flat out let you know they're racist.
Yeah,
but I've been covering a couple of different churches that are offshoots from Worldwide Church of God. There's one called the Living Church of God and the Restored Church of God. Now they're Christian. They believe in Jesus and the Bible and everything. And you can be a part of their church and be whatever color, but they want you to marry within your race and only within your race. Well, you're a racist. Like, that's a hate.
Well, so how the fuck would... All right, so, let's just explore this a little bit. We're not promoting it, but I'm asking questions about how this ideology works. How the fuck would I work? Because I'm a half-breed with white skin, but I'm Native American on my mom's side, and I'm full-blood British from the British Isles. My father came here, off a boat.
It depends on the group. The creativity movement.
I'm asking Grumpy Old Dude, what would they treat me as?
You mean this Restored Church of God or Living Church of God?
Yeah, this thing that you're talking about.
I'm not really sure. I think they would accept you into the congregation or whatever. But
would I be allowed to marry anybody?
You would probably have to marry.
I don't know.
So if you're predominantly white, you would probably have to marry white. If you're
But I'm not-
predominantly
Yeah.
native, you would have to marry native, something like
Yeah.
But
that.
I think the hard thing with me though is that I have white skin, but my features are native. So like, what the fuck?
Well, me too. Like, so I just the other day I was talking about it at work. Like, somebody was like, "You're not Native American." I'm like, "Fuck, dude." Like, yeah, I'm white, but like, if you just knew native features, you could look at my face and see Native American all fucking day.
Okay, your eyebrows, man. Like your
I know
eyebrows.
my
alone.
eyebrows and my forehead, right?
So like, if you're from Canada, people from Canada have asked me what tribe I'm from. People here, I don't look Cherokee, so they don't know I'm not white.
Yeah.
So, but in regards to what I've studied of the creativity movement, and old Grumpy Dude can correct me if I'm wrong, the creativity movement does not believe it's Aryan. So if you're a
Oh,
mixed
yeah.
breed, then you're brown. You're not
Yeah.
you're not white.
Yeah. If you're not European, 100% European, then they don't want nothing to do with you. You are to be disposed of.
Yeah.
Oh damn! I guess I don't want to be around the assholes.
Well, and that's why in my update video, I'm so disappointed. Audience, you guys have gotta make me feel better about myself because I make really good videos and I'm super proud of, and they don't get watched. And then I make a video on Matt Powell, and everybody under the moon watches
Yeah.
that shit.
Yeah, I just saw him mention you on Cyman Dan, by the way.
Yeah, I gotta still watch that. Somebody mentioned that Simon Dan did a video.
Oh man. Yeah.
He's obsessed with me. He is. I think
Alright.
it's because I'm purty.
So, grumpy old dude, to kind of keep things a little bit on topic, I know that Knock has done now 2 videos on, hey, this is what you brought me on for, Knock. Don't
I know.
you dare.
I was
Don't
saying
you
it's
do
my
it.
fault. So I get his sidetracked. So
Look at him. He gets like the I'm a kid who got into the cookie jar look on his face when I do that. It's hilarious.
this is my kind of conversation. Like, dude, I'm sorry about the miscommunication because we should have done this fucking long ago.
So, I know that Knock has done a couple videos on it, but not everybody in our audience has seen them. And there's a few people, I think, that are newer, that are either coming from your audience or are coming from... We've had a couple of debate appearances recently, and so our channel has grown. We have a lot of new faces in the chat.
Yeah.
For folks that haven't seen the video, do you want to kind of give us a quick, say, couple paragraph long summary of like what the creativity movement is and why it's so hard to find information on them? Because if you look up the creativity movement, you're going to get a lot of like random shit.
You're gonna get like one video on the Church of the Creator, but then you have to actually specify who you're looking at. So like when I found Matthew Hale and Ben Smith, I found them through articles and then specified them in my YouTube searches.
Yep. Yeah. Basically, it was started as World Church of the Creator by a guy named Ben Klassen, who was a politician in Florida back in the 70s. Well, 60s, really. He started the church in 1972. After a bunch of mishaps or whatever, the church started falling apart. Ben Klassen passed away, and this younger guy, Matthew Hale, who did actually graduate law school, revamped the church and kind of brought it back to life. Well, Matt Hale is currently serving 40 years in prison for trying to put a hit out on a federal judge.
Woo.
Over some nonsensical. It wasn't even like the federal judge was trying to shut him down. The federal judge just basically said, "No, you can't use that name."
Yeah, they actually got sued by a Christian church for rights to the name, and they lost the lawsuit.
Yeah, on appeal. Like originally the judge granted him he won originally, but on appeal the judge took away that right for him to use that name, and that's when he tried to buy the hit on her from an undercover FBI agent.
Yeah, that sounds like that sounds like some Tiger King bullshit.
Well, and the heat probably came on him because of the whole Ben Smith shooting spree, because he endorsed Ben Smith, and Ben Smith went out and did what he did, and then that probably brought the heat on him.
Guys, we have people in the audience who may not know what we're
my
talking
fault.
about. All right, so let's go to step 2, which is what makes them theologically unique. Like, what makes them special? What's their shtick?
Their shtick is they don't believe in any god or gods. They don't believe in devils or demons. They don't believe in heaven or hell. They are an atheistic white supremacist group. Now, as far as I know,
So how are they the Church of the Creator then? Like what?
Because they believe the white race is religion.
Right. They believe that the white race not only is their religion, the white race created everything of value in the world. We created society, we created languages and everything else, and it's been taken over by the Jewish occupational governments of the world, or the Zionist occupational governments.
So there's some E. Michael Jones level shit then.
Well, yeah, and it's they call themselves creators, Ali. So they literally think that if you're white, then you are creating and you're a creator. And that's why I said in my update video, if you hear somebody referring to themselves as a creator, don't automatically judge them as a neo-Nazi by any means. Just raise those red flags.
We refer to ourselves as creators because we're YouTube content creators.
Exactly. Yeah, it can mean a lot of things. But if you're out in the world and you come across somebody, just raise those red flags and be aware of who they are. Now, I personally think that there's hope for pretty much every neo-Nazi out there. Grumpy Old Dude is an example of that. He came out of it, and he came out of it on his own, just studying science and getting truth. So I think it's really easy. The hard part is getting the truth to them.
Well, it's not just that, I don't think. And Grumpy Old Dude, this was actually a comment that I wanted to ask you about, because sociologically and psychologically, this is kind of my shtick. A lot of what appeals, like, you might have gotten into white supremacy, a lot of people got into white supremacy either through a situation like what you dealt with where you were in prison, so you ended up in the white gang. But a lot of people also end up coming to it because they're angry and they're hurt and they're victimized in some way, whether it's they're dealing with issues of being lower class and they're fighting the system and they don't understand the system well enough to know it's the system's problem, or, they've been victimized by, like, let's say they got into an altercation with somebody of another race and then they start digging into information. So I think another problem with leaving is the community, because, like, by its very nature, becoming a white supremacist will ostracize you from a lot of the people who might help pull you out of it and get you a lot closer to the people who are going to agree with you and bring you deeper.
Yeah,
So,
we'll let Grumpy Old Dude answer that. But I just want to say that that's like a thing for all gangs. It was very hard for me to get out of my gang mentality because of the support system behind me inside of it. It took a lot of research and a lot of soul searching for me to do it. But I'll let you answer, Grumpy Old Dude.
Well, one of the most dangerous things about the creativity movement and their members is they really do try and target younger people, and they target the ones that do kind of have that chip on their shoulder. But when
they're disenfranchised.
When they try and bring them in, though, they spin their spiel so good. They sound so intelligent. And when you're talking to somebody that's 16, 17, 18 years old who really doesn't have a whole lot of knowledge, and you're putting stuff out there that looks legit, like actual scientific paperwork.
Well, and of course, you add the extra layer of conspiracy on top of it, because all these people do.
Oh, yeah. All this historical documentation and everything, it's kind of easy to spin it and make somebody say, well, man, I never heard that before. And they said, well, of course you haven't. They don't want you to know. That's why you need to come with us, because we'll protect you. Yeah. And they're really not protecting you.
It's right there. It's right there with the conspiracy theory.
By recruiting you. And you're exactly right. It's very hard for a 16-year-old kid who doesn't know shit about the world to come across somebody that is putting out very intelligent arguments to them and say, no, you're wrong. I'm not going to believe that. We see that on a wider level with the alt-right and how so many disenfranchised white teenagers are falling into that, because it's very easy to look at the world and say, you know what they're saying is true. It's a lot harder to delve deeper and find the truth.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a good gift of gab to spin stuff, you got a good chance of bringing people in that really just don't know any better.
Well, and I will
Yeah.
say, as an author, propaganda is an art, but it's also a science. There are specific techniques you can use with language, and we've actually gone over them on this channel before. In the taken down but not deleted Misha Popoff streams, we went into one of his articles on the so-called gay Jesus movement, which isn't actually a thing. But we talked about the way that he used language in such a way to create assumptions and to create, parallels and other things. There are sales techniques that you can use to manipulate somebody into agreeing or pull on their heartstrings or pull on their fear. And if you understand how to do that and you use it, I'm going to say for evil, because I consider this shit to be evil. I mean, I'm a mixed blood, but it's not just because of my blood that I think that. Growing up, my best friend in the entire fucking world was black and my other best friend was Jewish. So I've never really known a world in which there was just one race, so to speak. But for people who do, this idea that somehow that you can craft, say, a single ethnic state or something like that, which is the ultimate goal of all of these groups.
Oh yeah.
I actually agree with them on it. I think we should send them all to one spot so we're no.
Send them all to an island so they can kill each other. But here's the problem with that, though. Let's say you get your fucking Aryan nation state. Well, when you're united based off of hate and you run out of people to hate, what happens? You start hating each other. This can only ever end in more violence.
And back to your point, and we'll let Grumpy Dude jump back in. But back to your point about how they're very skilled at spinning this shit. The best advice. I need to turn my phone off. But the best advice I ever got, because I was going to talk to one of Richard Spencer's guys. I had him lined up to come on. I talked to Ocean Keltoy. And Ocean was like, dude, unless you're fully prepared to combat everything he says, don't do it. And I'm glad that I took his advice because I wasn't prepared. And it probably would have been a disaster. If you're going to confront these people, you need to know your shit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and you also need a good moderator, because these people will gish gallop you to hell and back, and then you're trying to pick apart a sentence 5 sentences ago, and they're already on to the next point.
Yeah, and listen, a lot of these people in the creativity movement are very well educated. Like, they're not stupid. They're not your typical skinhead street punks. These people actually have some good education, and a lot of them come from really good backgrounds. I was the misfit when they brought me in, because I come from a broken home, went through foster care and everything else. And that wasn't the norm for the higher ups that are in this organization. They all come from white collar families for the most part.
To be fair, though, that is typical with cults. Quite often, the higher ups will be higher class or middle high class, and they'll bring in people from broken homes, people who have a history of crime, people who are downtrodden, people who are mentally ill. Like, that's the people that cults target because they're easy to influence.
Well, yeah, and even Ben Smith, who committed that mass murder. If you listen to him, very intelligent dude. Oh yeah, very intelligent guy. It's hard to listen to him and not find agreement with some of the things he says. And then you see what he did, and it's atrocious. Drink GPH. But at the same time, these are not stupid people. They know their shit. They know their talking points. And especially with the creativity movement, they understand when to go underground. I talked about it in my update video. You can't find no information on these guys anymore. They are so deep underground as to be almost invisible. Yeah.
Well, and because they've learned from their mistakes in the past. I do know that the head person, which they call him the Pontifex Maximus, that's their leader in charge, is a guy named Joe Esposito from New York, which is ironic because Joe Esposito used to be New York City chief of police or whatever.
Really?
So, yeah, there used to be a Joe Esposito who was
not the same guy, though.
No, not the same guy. No, different guy, same name. As far as I know, they moved their headquarters out to Oregon somewhere. And
that makes sense. We've got a Proud Boy problem over in Oregon, so that it makes sense that they'd go hang out with them.
Yeah, well, they used to be in Peoria, Illinois, back when I was a member, and then of course Matt Hale went to prison and everything, and it wasn't very long after he went to prison that I kind of start having my falling out with these people, because I realized that the stuff they were telling me didn't add up, you know?
Yeah. And I'm glad you did, because
Yeah.
we need more people like you out here speaking out against them. When I checked out your channel and I watched a few of your videos, that's mainly what you focus on.
Yeah.
And I respect the hell out of that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's activism. That's praxis.
I'm trying. I don't know. I kind of been, things have been rough these past few weeks. I got sick. I'm getting better, but I started getting down on myself, like doubting myself, like, you know, am I really making a difference? And then tonight, my wife is like, of course you're making a difference. You're getting ready to go do another show on somebody else's channel and put the word out. So,
well,
yeah, I
and
think
Knock
you
actually
are.
even
I
got your
really
fucking
think you
link
are.
in the description. So if people go click that, like you're probably going to get at least a few subs. Our audience is pretty damn good with that.
You know, I just put out a video today, and it kind of telling people what I'm about. I really don't care about the subs. I don't care about making money off of YouTube. Everybody tells me there's not a whole lot of money to be made on YouTube anyway.
We got John in the house.
If I can get one person to get in touch with me and say, hey man, I'm glad I saw your videos. You changed my mind. You know, I feel like I accomplished something.
Yeah, that's the best feeling to me. You know, I've got a lot of atheists that approach me, and I love that. I do. I get Christians that approach me, and I love that. I do. But the best things are when I do the videos on the marginalized, and they approach me, and they're like, "You helped me." That's why I do this. That's why I spend all this time doing that. And when you actually hear that from somebody else, that vindication does a lot for you. I imagine that it has to go a long way into verifying that you made the right choice when you left that movement.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had childhood friends of mine that I grew up with that, you know, are black and Spanish and everything else. And even when I was in this movement, I would still talk to them and everything. And it would always get to me like, you know, I can't not be friends with, you know, Trey or, you know, whoever. I can't just let that go. But I wasted 20 years of my life telling people they were the enemy while I was friends with them. And when that finally kicked in, I'm like, man, what are you doing with your life?
Well, and I think that's a feature I think that's a feature of cults in general, kind of like what we were talking about, circling back to one of the points I made earlier. Like, cults encourage you to isolate yourself from anybody who doesn't 100% agree with you. It starts off with, oh, they're haters, oh, da-da-da, ignore them. And then eventually it's, oh, they're haters, kick them the fuck out of your life. You don't need them. We're your family. And the deeper you get indoctrinated, the more isolated you become without that cult, and the harder it gets to leave. That's part of that information control and thought, information control, thought control, and environmental control.
Yeah. And
but oh, go on.
I don't think that Benjamin Smith was a part of the Tea Party, because I think that was before the Tea Party.
Yeah, listen, the thing with the creativity movement is, I know right now they're taking advantage of Trump and all his idiocy, but they really don't get into any kind of politics. As far as they're concerned, all politics are run by the Zionist occupational world government.
George Soros and the like.
Yeah. They don't support Democrats or Republicans per se. Like I said, I know right now they're taking advantage of, the Trumpocracy we got going on, but they don't actually endorse any kind of politics.
Well, and they're not the only ones taking advantage of Trump. We've seen a definitive spike in these groups since Trump took office. I have a bunch of statistics. So the Southern Poverty Law Center saw a dramatic rise in chapters of white nationalists from 100 in 2017 to 148 in 2018. So the word chapters there can be deceiving. We're talking about individual groups that have their own individual chapters.
Can I address something really quick?
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
understand that so Todd, I understand that you're covering the NAFB and that you've been in contact with Knock, but we generally don't encourage people to post links for any sort of like self-promotion and stuff in the side chat. I'm not necessarily we can't exactly stop the mods from doing that per se, but we try not to during other people's streams. It's one thing if you're posting the link to the channel of our guest. It's quite another if you're posting your own stuff. Like, please
Well,
leave that for another time.
I do let Lisa for Truth do it.
Well, Lisa does it, but Lisa's always posting videos on the topics that we're talking about, though.
Yeah.
I've never seen her. I've never seen her post
That could be a bit my fault
because
because we were talking right before the stream started, and he said that he would be here, and I didn't quite specify. So yeah, just try to avoid doing that. We will try to get you on the channel soon, though.
Yeah, we're working on getting you on the channel. We'll be able to shill the hell out of you then. But until then, please let us keep the focus on the topic that's at hand, please. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. So there was a 182% increase in distribution of white nationalist propaganda rallies and demonstrations from 2017 to 2018. Number of terrorist attacks by far right perpetrators rose by 400% between 2016 and 2017. I have more stats, but I'll save them for later.
Well, and I wanted to go back to one other thing because we lost it a little bit in conversation earlier, but you were talking about the education levels of folks that were, like towards the top of this. And I wanted to link it back to something we talked about recently, which is conspiracy theories. People want to feel special. People want to feel like they have the truth and no one else does. So when somebody comes to you as a 16-year-old that seems highly educated, or even if you are highly educated yourself and you get exposed to these theories and you don't know how to refute them, like, this can appeal to the pattern recognition part of your brain where you're like, oh, wow, I'm smart enough. I get it too. Now we're both special.
Yep. Yeah. And like I said, when I went to prison and I was still young, like they pretty much started recruiting me right before my 21st birthday. And I was in Rahway State Prison at the time. And it's not like I was a dummy. I mean, I graduated when I was 16. I did very well in school. But like I said, they started showing me these documents that really looked official and talking about things that, like you said, I really couldn't debunk anything that they were throwing at me. That and the fact that they were an atheist group. And I got sucked right in, and then years, later, I started doing my own research and everything and getting smarter on my own and realized that, yeah, your science doesn't add up and neither does your history. Yeah.
Well, and part of the problem also, like when I've gotten into arguments with white supremacists, because that's actually part of how I got into YouTube, was I was good friends with a YouTuber who used to go by Pig Puncher. He goes by Xander Hall now. I know he's really controversial in lefty circles, but he's what we call the dirtbag left. Him and Vosh like to get into fights with white supremacists and stuff, and they'll debate almost anybody on almost anything. And I was an admin for his Discord. And so people would call me in to stop fights when we'd get hardcore white supremacists that would go into the voice chat and they'd start trying to present all of the scientific evidence, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And one of the things,
Discord in its early stages was raided by Nazis. That might have been before Ali got there, though.
No, well, it was before I was an admin. I was a mod. I helped control one of those raids, but I was not an admin yet. We still had she who must not be named was our admin back then.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I noticed over and over was that either their articles were more than 50 years old, or they were published in these open source pseudoscientific journals, the pay-to-play journals. Yeah. They would look, like a journal like Psychology, but they wouldn't be that. And so I'd go and dig into the journals.
And that's what I started doing, and that's what got me out of it.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important point to drive home here is that you did get out of it. And it's possible. And so I think that goes to the argument that a lot of Antifa do it wrong, that punching a Nazi in the face isn't necessarily going to change their mind. Simply speaking to them, having an honest conversation with them might go a lot farther. I don't want to get into an Antifa conversation. I have pointed out that I am somewhat of a supporter of the cause, if not the methods. Right. But I think that's clearly an indication from you and from other people that I've talked to that with information can come change. Yeah.
And my thing is, I did all my battles back in the day. I got scars to prove it, but every time you go up and punch one of these people in the face, you give them ammunition to say, see how violent and horrible they are.
Exactly.
You're making a martyr out of them.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
we see
and if
it. We see it with these protests towards coronavirus when righties are doing the same things that they complained about the left doing, or complained about Antifa doing. But yet they're a lot better at vocalizing those dissenting views to where they can go out and do it and still say the same shit the next day.
Yeah. And back to what you were saying earlier, with the growth in these groups, I did a little checking into that, and one of the biggest ones is the Christian identity movement.
Well, yeah, sorry to cut you off. Trans Carter made a comment. I want to address it really quick. I'm not saying that Antifa just goes around and does that. I'm speaking to the elements that do that. So please don't please don't fuck up my words here. Please.
Yeah, not all of them do that, but there are the ones out there that
there is I think they. I don't want to get it wrong, but it's something like the black element, that they call it the black something or another. There's an element of Antifa that's very violent, and you can't just dismiss that.
Yeah.
Well, and if you start to look deeper into it also, the problem with them is that anything you do to fight them, they're going to try to use against you. If you get emotional and passionate, they hold that against you. If you don't, they hold that against you. If you debunk their science, they call you an establishment shill. The problem with cults is that they have a ready-made response to almost anything you could do to fight them. And the point of engaging with the people, especially the ones that are at the top that like the debates, and is in the hopes that you reach somebody who's just getting into it, or who hasn't been indoctrinated enough to where they can still question. It's for the audience. It's for all the people who haven't been reached out, so that they know, that this is a terrible thing if they do get recruited. You know what I mean? Like, it's to pull the people out that can still be saved, and it's to stop the people who might get recruited from getting pulled in the first place. It's not necessarily for that hardcore person you're debating.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Trans, I love you, but I disagree. Even if that's true,
that's Shay, by the way.
Even if that's true, Shay, it's all that gets talked about. So perception is reality. So even if that's true, it's wrong. Sorry, I love you, but come on now.
Yeah, well, and again, we've had a full-blown discussion. One of my first moderated discussions here was on Antifa, and both of us have done Antifa things, and both of us have gotten into violent altercations as part of Antifa.
I consider myself Antifa, but I can still speak against the parts of it that I disagree with. Punching a Nazi, it's an American pastime, but at the same time, it does no good. In our cell,
the rule was punch the Nazi back if they punch you, but stand in the way and be a human shield until then.
Let them initiate the violence. Don't initiate it yourself.
Yeah, because like I said, if you make a martyr out of them, you're just giving them ammunition.
But I love you, Shay. You know I got love for you, girl.
So, but coming back to it, I think that's the challenging thing, is for the people that are deeply, deeply indoctrinated. You were talking about the growth in cells, but what's interesting is the alt-right as a whole has been moving online and away from in-person gatherings. So movements like the one that you're describing, like, they're starting to decentralize, which I think is really interesting.
And I wanted to ask you that. So they've went underground, and you've been able to find where they are now. But do you think they went underground and integrated with other neo-Nazi groups, trying to bring them into the creativity movement?
Yeah, no. They're not really trying to bring them into the creativity movement, but they have allied themselves with other groups.
All right.
And they are still recruiting, new members. One of the groups that they're pretty deeply involved with is actually the Australia First Party. They get a lot of backing from them, and they support each other like hardcore. So I'm not really sure where that's going, because I know the laws in Australia are different than here. Like, you can't get away with certain things over there. They will kick.
Yeah, they don't fuck around over there.
So
the Australia First Party is one of the groups that Steve Bannon was approaching in Trump's name to bring them into their nationalist movement.
Yeah. Well, I sent you a link actually. I tried to anyway through Gmail for the Creativity Alliance.
Yeah, I got the link and then it disappeared. So I need you to send the link back. Like I
All
still
right.
have the email, but the link's gone.
All right. Yeah. If honestly, if you just look that up on Google,
All right. Yeah, I'm sure I can find it.
Alliance, there's a whole list of different groups that they are involved in and that support them and that they support. I think the biggest one here in the U.S. is a group called National Alliance, which is a Christian identity movement.
Mhm.
You know, they believe that the white race are the true Israelites.
Yeah, I've been actually doing research on that. So yeah, so Christian nationalism is starting to merge with white supremacy. People don't realize that. I haven't quite talked about it yet,
See, here's
but
the
I'm
thing.
looking into that. Yeah.
You're saying they're starting to merge.
I was about
They
to say the
started
same
back in
thing.
the 50s.
Yeah. This has been a long time. Like, we just don't
Yeah.
talk about it. So yeah, starting is a bad word. Have merged, and
Yeah.
nobody
I think
talks
they're
about
just
it
I think they're just getting more open about it is what's happening. I think
Well, because-
that there's
because Trump, right? Because Trump has made it
Because
okay.
They're growing. They're growing at a large, alarming rate.
well, and one could argue that the internet has a lot to do with that, especially the echo chambers and bubbles that can be created when, websites like Google or, Amazon or like other websites that use algorithmically based recommendation systems put you into a cycle. Like YouTube is extremely white supremacist.
Fight with me tonight, yo.
Not pop mine up, please, because I legit just told Shay we already endorsed Antifa. Drop it.
Yeah, Shay, come on now. Come on, don't start a fight with your boy.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you'd be starting a fight with both of us because I completely agree with you. OPSEC is key. Just because the media is an asshole doesn't mean we need to feed the media to be an asshole. Like that, there's a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but at the same time, I speak reality here. I don't gloss over it. So I'm sorry.
Well, and again, like I was like Knock and I both have done Antifa shit. We have both gotten into physical altercations with white supremacists who are trying to hurt protesters and shit like that. Like we both are Antifa. Like we
I
both are
punched a couple
openly
Nazis.
Antifa.
They punched me
Stop
back. It hurt.
Look,
Yeah,
I ended up
well.
in jail. I ended up in jail because I was fucking recording police beating the shit out of like Occupy Seattle protesters.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to get like sidetracked on Antifa. I'm not endorsing. I'm not disendorsing. I'm just stating a fact here. And there's an element of Antifa that is very violent. You cannot take that away. And they're very vocal. They're probably the most vocal element of Antifa. So if you have an issue with that, take it up with them.
Well, and I'm going to endorse Antifa as a concept and in general. I think that local people should absolutely work together to mobilize against fascists. I think that, you can't make a generalized statement about the movement as a whole because it is cells.
We have to be the example here. We have to
Yeah.
be the example. We cannot be as bad as they are. We
Yeah,
can't.
if a Nazi punches you in the face, don't turn the other cheek, punch back. But
Yeah,
don't start the fight.
Don't start the damn fight. Come on now. Yeah, stand there in opposition, face to face with them, and glare them down. Look at them in the eyes, and then when they throw that punch, throw it back because this is America. That's what we do. And they're Nazis, but at the same time, they're human beings, and they have a right to express these opinions, whether we disagree or not. It's in the Constitution. We've got to accept that. Free speech only matters when you accept the speech of people you disagree with.
Well, and I would continue to agree that platforms don't necessarily need to host that speech. Like, I don't think that YouTube
Free
should be
speech ain't here.
required to keep it up. Yeah.
Free speech ain't here, but it is in the country, and they have a right to voice those bullshit ideas. And if they didn't voice them, guess what? We wouldn't be here talking about them. So, I mean, that's the truth.
So now that we've been thoroughly derailed, coming back to this, I think that this actually is an important point, though.
I love you, Shay.
Because
I love you, girl.
excuse me, I've still got a little bit of a lingering cough every so often from my allergies. I was outside planting shit earlier. We were planting starts for my garden.
I haven't heard of that one. I'm going to look into that, Dr. History. Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt. I
Yeah,
just saw that. I hadn't heard that one.
Army of God is getting pretty big.
Yeah, Army of God and Atomwaffen is starting to come back. We thought that it had been dispersed, but Atomwaffen is coming back, and so are the Proud Boys. Proud Boys are starting to start actual
Fucking
fights.
Proud Boys. Yeah, I mean, Proud
We've
Boys
got
have
a
been
Proud Boy
present.
problem up here.
They've been present at several of the protests against COVID.
Yeah, they've actually we're starting to get a Proud Boy problem up here. Fucking Oregon infected us, unfortunately, and we're starting to get them showing up to there was a mini thing outside of
But
the
your
UK that
state
happened.
is the home of Antifa, right?
But I mean, practically, there's a lot of Antifa cells here. They probably won't be here for very long.
I mean, it started there. It started in the whole Seattle grunge scene. I mean, that's where it fucking started.
Yeah, coming back to how to combat this stuff, you can't stay silent. You can't let it just fester because the problem is
that's why I want a grumpy old dude on this stream. We have to combat this. You can't run away from this shit. You just can't.
Well, and that's what I wanted to say to grumpy old dude was, do you think, obviously you were indoctrinated in prison, so you didn't have access to outside information, not the way that say kids that might be recruited off the street might.
Yeah, not so much. No. Now,
so how
granted,
important?
When I did go to prison in New Jersey, I did most of my time in Trenton and Rahway, and they do have pretty good libraries in there. Like back then, they were still pushing a whole education agenda, for rehabilitation. So I did get some things, and every time I would question something, like you said before, they were quick to have something to say. Oh, no. This is what it really is. And it took me a long time before I got my hands on really good books and everything. And when I got out, by the time I got out, the internet was up and going, and I started seeing all kinds of, different stuff from actual scientists and historians and everything. And that was it for me. I was like, yeah, we're done with this now. You guys are full of it, and I'm not doing this no more.
And that could be why they're upping their propaganda campaigns in the last few years, is because more and more people are finding that information and they're having a drop off, and they're like, fuck, we're in the age of Trump. Let's pick it up a notch. And it seems to be working.
Well, and how important would you say that it is? They've gone underground, so their stuff isn't out there. Would you say that now is a prime time for posting things like your videos or, blog posts or debunks that specifically call out the creativity movement by name, call out the church by name, call out their arguments by name, so that when people look for it, they find us instead of them?
Oh, yeah, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And, see, here's the thing, though. They haven't really gone underground. They're just not doing interviews and videos and stuff like that. Yeah, they want to do everything face to face in person. That way, nobody can really call them out.
And the most important thing, I think, is they're not committing violent crimes out in the open anymore. Yeah, they might be doing it underground, but they're not doing it in the name of the Church of the Creator anymore.
Yeah, they're not making a big scene like they used to. They don't want people really looking at them. Like I said, unless it's face-to-face, one-on-one, to bring new members in. They're kind of staying out of the spotlight, but they're not really underground. There's a group right here in Pennsylvania where I'm at, and I've said it before, every now and then I'll get some hate mail or whatever, and it's like, if you really wanted to do something, you would have did it by now. You know where I live.
But it is scary. I've been through that. I remember a good 2-year period after I started getting the death threats from ISUPK, to where I was looking over my shoulder, and any black guy, I mean, I felt like shit. Any black guy, I'm like, could that be ISUPK? And I finally got to the point, I'm becoming a fucking racist again. I cannot let this shit fucking affect me like that. I just can't fucking do it. And so now I make it a fucking point to just go up to them and shake their hand and be like, what up, dog? Instead of looking over my shoulder like, fuck, is he going to blow my brains out? Because I said that they're bullshit, and I did want to, I preface it preface that, like, I want to talk about hate groups, not just white nationalism being the theme, but hate groups span all races.
Oh yeah.
They're everywhere, and they're against everybody, and it's not just white people doing it. It's everybody. So I did want to get that out there.
Yeah, one of the groups I'm kind of looking into right now, I'm trying to figure out really what they believe is this Black Israelites.
Yeah,
that's the Black Hebrew Israelites.
ISUPK is the group that fucking scared the shit out of me. I'm not gonna fucking lie, because we have chapters in Detroit. They knew I lived in Battle Creek, and they were threatening. They were like, "We're coming for you," and I'm like, "Fuck."
Yeah, I'm looking into them, and there's a Jewish group. I can't remember their name right now. I have to go back and look at my notes. But I guess they believe in, I don't know, some kind of mathematical equation to prove God, and there's lizard people, and
I've heard of them. Yeah, the lizard people. Fuck. They live underground. Yeah, they're underground, and they come out and they manipulate everything.
Yeah. I actually know who you're talking about, like who the leader of that is. But we actually had a question from Tartan Snowflake for Grumpy Old Dude that I think is interesting, and I think it's worth discussing. Tartan asks, do you think that children in a Christian homeschooled environment might be more easily swayed into supremacy than some in mainstream school?
It depends. I think they could be.
So they specified Christian homeschool, so we're going to assume that they're probably not getting education on evolution, and they're probably getting only basic education on biology.
Yeah. I think they could be swayed into the Christian identity movement. I wouldn't say they could really be swayed into creativity unless they wanted to rebel against their parents and go after an atheist type religion.
So that reminds me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think the creativity movement allies with Christian supremacist groups, or do you think that they see them as enemies also?
Some of them, they do ally themselves with more. Well, I won't even say that they go with the Christian groups. They'll go with political groups that have a Christian faith or whatever, but they do view themselves as the most anti-Christian religion in the world. You know, as far as they're concerned, if you're practicing any form of Christianity, you have issues and you need to get away from that, and they really don't want to partner up with you too much.
That makes sense. By the way, the person that you were talking about with the lizard people, that's David Icke.
He's one of them, but there's this group that I found. They only have a couple of YouTube videos on, and I can't remember what the hell it is right now. But I'm not really sure if they're a racist group or just kind of loopy. So I got to check into them a little bit more before I start going after them.
Well, and that's like usually the problem that I found is trying to differentiate between racism and just ignorance, and that's a hard thing to do because some people are just ignorant, and that's something that I've really had to come to terms with, because they'll say things that I recognize as neo-Nazi rhetoric, but they're not neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that that's one of the hard things about the who means and who memes discussion online right now is people who post edgy memes because they think they're funny versus people who genuinely believe in the ideology. It's getting harder and harder to tell the difference. And is there a meaningful difference? How do we have that discussion? Like, do we ostracize the people who put these things out? Do we try to have discussions with them when they're probably surrounded by friends who are encouraging them to post these horrible, edgy things? Like, how do you handle a situation where you've been encouraged to use, and as a writer, this drives me fucking crazy, a terrible definition of the word irony to try to pass your shit off as acceptable?
Well, yeah, and true believers is really hard to get to. Like even when it comes to like Trump, I've been dealing with a person that I know in real life. I consider her a friend, but trying to tell her truth is almost an impossibility because her beliefs are all that matter. And I think it's like that with a lot of people, and you really have to break
Yeah.
through to that. And that's why I say like punching them in the face ain't going to do that. It's just going to reinforce them. So you really have to have the knowledge to combat them in order to go at them. And if you don't have that knowledge, you're fucking up. And I'm glad I took Ocean's advice when it came to that because I would have fucked up.
Well, and that's the thing with me. Like, I've gotten in touch with a couple of people that I used to be involved with and asked them flat out, hey, listen, I'm doing YouTube. You want to debate me or what? You know, what's up? And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm not doing all that. You're just going to try and make me look stupid. And I'm like, I don't have to try. I know what you're going to spin. You know, I know how to argue against that because I used to argue that same crap.
Yeah, I would think that they would be terrified of you in a way that they're not of me. Right. Because I never lived that. So I don't know what they're going to say. I can try to guess and I can try to be prepared, but you know what they're going to say. And they don't want nothing to do with that.
Yeah. I know, you know, just like a former Christian would know the Christian apologetics and arguments. I know, you know, the creativity apologetics and arguments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah, they don't want no parts of trying to debate me.
I almost guarantee you those same people would jump at an opportunity to come on my channel and debate me.
Oh yeah.
They're like, hell yeah, fuck yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. And like I said, right now, I guess their thing is staying out of the media, you know, kind of getting away from everything and keeping it quiet while they're still trying to recruit new members and build this organization back up because it took a big hit when Matt Hale fell. You know, they just kind of scattered it into everywhere.
Yeah, I think the combination of Ben Smith and then Matt Hale really at least sent some cognitive awareness to them to where they realized we really, if we want to continue to exist, we've got to change shit. And it appears that they did that successfully.
Well, and I'm going to have to go in a minute because I'm going to get a call sometime in the next couple of minutes from my counselor, so I'm going to have to go do that. But I wanted to say, I think that the work that you're doing, Grumpy Old Dude, right now, even though people are trying to do the in-person thing, I think it's more important than ever because right now you have white supremacists within the alt-right that are paving the path for people to become more and more bigoted. You know, it starts with watching, say, gaming YouTube videos. Like, there's an incredible
Andy Warski.
Yeah, well, and PewDiePie even. PewDiePie endorsed multiple white supremacists. Like, people who just like gaming and want to be, quote, apolitical, watch these YouTubers, and then they get funneled down a pipeline into the worst of the worst, and then, you know, next thing you know, the deeper in that they get, they're starting to blame women and minorities for all the problems in the country, and those groundworks are being laid down online so that when you get approached by a recruiter for the creativity movement, some of that shit might already be on your mind, because you, as this vulnerable person, you're more than likely going to have already been exposed to some form of these ideas.
Yeah, I think when Gamergate broke, we were like, this is stupid. But the more you delve into PewDiePie especially, it's like, oh, wait.
Yeah, see, I wasn't really into YouTube or anything when all that happened. So I'm kind of trying to play catch up on that.
Yeah, I was just starting YouTube when that broke, and I was like, you know, I didn't really know what to think about it. You had one group saying, oh, it wasn't that bad. He just said the N-word. He didn't mean to say it. But I think since then we have like really good information that PewDiePie is just a fucking racist. So.
Well, it's not just that he's a racist, though. He pals around with racists. He has a gigantic platform, and he endorses his racist buddies. But he also
talking about YouTube money. That motherfucker made like $12 million in 1 year off YouTube.
Well, and again, not even just that, but on top of it, he endorses a type of racism that is very subtle. It's very under the ground. Like you start hearing people talk about like the Great Replacement. They don't start talking about white people right away. They start talking about genetics. They talking about birth rates. They talk about things in a way that a moderate would maybe find acceptable. And that's the gateway drug. That's the fucking, like, that's how you start to get involved with it. And again, the average person in that demographic, 16 to 19, they're probably on YouTube. YouTube is the number one website that kids fucking visit. They've probably seen videos from their favorite gamers and from the people that they pal around with talking about this shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've actually kind of done that myself, just kind of eased my way into somebody's head, with little things like that, until I knew, okay, well, now he's ready, for me to come out with the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Hey, listen, I belong to this racist group. You ought to come hook up with us.
All right. Calls coming in. I'll see you later, guys.
All right. Alec. All right. Yeah, I would agree. Like that's a huge thing is you want to warm them up. You don't want to just approach them directly with everything. You want to butter them up until they're ready. And then once they're ready, there comes the recruitment. And I think that it's been very successful, especially in the past few years. You see it bear out in the statistics, especially when you have a president that kind of makes it okay. So yeah, I think that's a definite element that you start low and you just build and you just feed information until the person has so much information that they have to join you. And I think that they probably have a pretty good inner feeling of when that moment comes.
Yeah. And that's one thing that's helping the Christian identity movement is everybody's jumping on this, church bandwagon, thanks to Trump and having his, religious advisors on TV and everything all the time. People are starting to turn to Christianity. Well, when you're brand new to Christianity and somebody from Christian identity approaches you, they just start talking Christianity. And then slowly but surely, they're like, oh, and by the way, have you ever read this part about, Jacob and, the fall of true Israel being, cursed or whatever. And that's why they're a different color. And people are like, what? Really? Sure. The Bible proves it. And there you go. Now you got a whole new racist.
Yep. Yeah. And they've been using the Bible for this for a long time. Slave owners were using the Bible to justify owning slaves. So yeah, it's a very easy argument to make, I think, when you come from a Bible place, because it's been done for hundreds of years now. So it's a very old playbook that you can just fall back on and utilize when you need it.
Yeah. And like I said, the biggest ones growing right now are Christian identity. And then again, you have a lot of young kids out there who are starting to try and get away from the church, just like I was. Yep. And then you find somebody that's a creator and they're like, hey, I'm an atheist too. Check out our religion.
Yeah, and I think that's why I jumped on the creativity movement, because it did come up as an atheist religion. And I have seen so many atheist alt-writers that fell into that anti-feminist, humanism mode of thinking. And it was scary. And when I first started doing YouTube as an atheist, I talked about that a lot. And I think that Trump has just become so normalized and has become the major issue that I got away from talking about that, because I think that it's an important thing that young people, they're not starting out like fucking wanting to be a neo-Nazi. They're led there. And that's why people consider movements like the creativity movement to be a cult, as opposed to just a normal hate group, is because they are really buttering you up and trying to get you to that space and then saying, hey, I'm an atheist too. Let's talk.
Yep. Yeah. And that's pretty much how they got me. They knew I was pushing this whole atheist thing when I got into prison. Guys would approach me like, hey, do you need someone to pray with? And man, get out of here. I don't believe in that crap anymore. And as soon as they heard that, they're like, whoa, this kid knows how to fight. He doesn't care. Let's go talk to him. You know?
Yeah. And that's the exact same thing that the folks saw in me was look at this big dude. He can fight. He doesn't give a fuck. Let's bring him into the fold, right? And I rose very quickly in those ranks because I was willing to fight and I didn't give a fuck.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, like I said earlier in the video I put out today, I'm like, you know, I don't know how many fights I got into. I don't know how many times I got stabbed or stabbed somebody. You know?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was a brutal couple of decades.
That's the hardest thing I think it is to like convey to people because I can talk about it and some people will think I'm either being truthful or I'm just feeding them stories, but you can't relate to them the experiences. You can't relate to them the feelings that you felt when you did those things. You can't relate to them the exact manner of those things in which you did because that shit happened in the past and you don't remember it and you can't relay it properly. So a lot of people were like, yeah, right. But like, if you could see my battle scars, you would know, like there's no doubt. Like, I think usually people that have been in those situations, we can tell it. Like, we can look into somebody's eyes and be like, he's been in the shit. And I think war veterans would say the same thing. You can look into a war veteran's eyes and be like, he's been in the shit. And I think it's very true. And unless you've lived in the shit, you really can't understand it.
Yeah. And in a way, though, I use that to my advantage now. If I do come across somebody, you know, younger or whatever, and I tell them like, yeah, listen, all that sounds badass or whatever, but man, you don't want to live that kind of life. Like, seriously, you know, I'm almost 50 years old. I wake up in the morning, I sound like a box of Rice Krispies from all the crap I went through.
Me too. The pains, the aches. Sometimes just my knuckles hurt, and I'm like, why do my knuckles hurt right now? And then I remember, I punched so many motherfuckers back in the day. You know,
all my fingers go in different ways. You know, I got one that won't ever go straight again. You know.
Yeah, me too.
It's nothing to want to do.
And it's hard for people to understand that, especially if they've lived a more privileged life and haven't been through those experiences or never even really been in a real fight before. A lot of I'm just realizing that a lot of people live that experience. I'm like, shit, man, that's got to be crazy, you know? Like, but it's hard to really express that to an audience, and you try your best, but you know, they might grasp parts of it, but they're really not going to grasp the meat of it. And that's why you have to be repetitive, and you just have to keep going and going and going. And eventually I think that they will come to an understanding that, hey, I might not understand it, but the guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I don't know. One of my biggest things right now too, is hopefully after all this stuff passes with the virus and whatnot, I really need to try and get a hold of, you know, a decent tattoo artist. And I know there's that program out there, you know, they'll do cover-ups for free and everything. Because I still got some gang tattoos and stuff I got to get rid of. You know, I still got my tattoo from Creativity Movement. That's got to go, you know. But I'm left-handed, and that's on my left arm, so I can't really reach that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've got actually brands that I want to cover up from my gang days, and most people don't understand what they are, but still, like a lot of people actually think they're neo-Nazi, and I'm like, I have to explain to them, no, I was a member of the folk, and I hung out with Crips. I was a gangbanger, and I got these brands. Nothing neo-Nazi about them. One of them almost looks like a swastika, but it's just the way that Crips made the letter G. People see that and they're like, oh, you're a neo-Nazi. And I'm like, dude, I don't have no hair. That doesn't mean nothing.
Yeah. Now, I did have somebody tell me, though, that I might want to think about covering up all of my racist tattoos. And I'm like, why? You know, and he's like, because if you're going and talking to these young kids and everything, you can prove to them that you did that. You know, flash that tattoo and be like, listen, I was a hardcore member. I earned my ink. And I'm like, now, all right. Now you got me thinking. But for me, it's got to go. That's a part of
Yeah.
my past that I don't want anymore. So
Well,
it's
and
got
I think you could still show that. You could show where it's been removed or covered up, and
Yeah,
show that,
exactly.
hey, I've
Yeah.
moved on. I'm not that person anymore. But
Yeah.
let me tell you about these experiences.
Yeah, I figure I'm going to take pictures of everything before I get it
Yeah,
covered up.
that'd be good.
You
Yeah,
know?
I agree. I like, and it's important because there are a lot of youth out there that could be reached that are just getting into it, and if they just had voices out there, and there's some, but too many times, as with happened to me recently, too many times the voices against the hate gets labeled with the hate, and oh, you're promoting that hate speech, we got to take you down, when in actuality you're fighting against it and you shouldn't be, and the lines get blurred and crossed there.
Yeah. And, and that's one reason why I wanted to start a YouTube. My wife actually talked me into starting YouTube, because we'd be watching videos and I'd be spitting out answers before it even came out on the video. And she's like, you want to start your own channel? And I'm like, all right. So I did. And at first it was just kind of joking around, laughing, funny, whatever. And then it just turned into this atheist channel. And I'm like, all right, I'm not just going to focus on atheism. I'm going after hate groups because that's what I really know.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I think that's where me and you are very similar, because I made that same decision. I had this atheist channel and it was taken off and I was just talking atheism. And I came to the point like, no, I'm going to advocate against hatred. And
nice.
A lot of people love that. And then a lot of people are like, well, you're helping the hate. And I'm like, I fundamentally disagree with you because I stand in opposition of that hate. It's a completely different thing. I see your argument, but at the same time, I disagree with it.
Yeah, I guess I kind of get that argument. Any exposure is good exposure or whatever, but I can't really agree with that, because if I'm putting you on my channel, I'm going to make you look like a dumbass.
Yeah. and they're growing without it, right? So like if they weren't, then we wouldn't have to do this.
Yeah.
But they are. So ignoring it isn't making it go away. I think the only way to really make an influence is to fucking trash it, to make it look like what it really is.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, people aren't going to know and they're going to get sucked in.
Yeah. And listen, I have no doubt that they're going to still be around long after I, trash them on my channel, long after you go after them.
Yeah.
They're still going to be around, but like I said earlier, if I can get that one kid, that one, it doesn't even have to be a kid. If I can get one active member to say, I'm out, I'm going to go.
Your job is done.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and people, I think people really need to realize that, because I have to talk to that, and I've had that happen. I've had ex-NIFB members approach me and say, you know what, your work helped me out of it. I've had other trolls come and say, your work pushed me into the NIFB, and I'm like, you're a fucking liar. but like on the other side of it, I usually take it at faith, because that's why I do it. If so I guess it's just natural human behavior for me to accept that and not the other. But at the same time, like if you watch me talk about the NIFB and that's what puts you in the NIFB, I'm sorry, but you're an idiot, because I am trashing them every time I talk about them.
Yeah. I kind of did my own couple of little things about old Steven Anderson. I tried to call him out, but that didn't go down. So
it took 2 years, but now Steven Anderson knows who the fuck I am, and I love that. I fucking love that.
Oh, I sent him my video right to his direct Gmail account.
I haven't done that yet. I need to fucking do that.
Oh yeah, I called him flat out. Like, if you're not going to debate me, you're a punk, and I'm gonna call you a coward every time I talk about you.
He is a coward. He will never debate you. He'll never debate me. He'll send Matt Powell.
Oh yeah, he gave me some obscure Bible quote about not debating or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, that's not really what that passage in the Bible means, but whatever.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a debate, just a fun conversation, Steven. Don't be a bitch.
I keep calling him Steven.
Steven, I like that better. Yeah, I like that better. He probably hate it, so we're going to use Steven from now on.
Oh man,
this was great, dude. I thank you for coming on and talking.
Hey, thank you, man. This was good.
We got to do this again. Anytime I have an open room, please feel free to come in. I haven't seen too many questions from the chat, but I never pay attention to chat. I'm surprised that I got people show up for my live streams because I never pay attention to chat. But this was such a good conversation, and I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank you for being cool and not being like so many other people and just allowing a beef to just brew when it doesn't have to. So you're a good dude, man. I really appreciate you,
bro. That was just a whole mess of all kinds of stuff. And honestly, when my wife and I started talking about it, I was like, man, I'm a dick. Like,
I'm a dick too.
I just blamed him for something that's not even his fault. Like, wow. So yeah.
No, I appreciate you being cool.
Another shot, bro.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate you being cool, and I appreciate this conversation. I want to thank you for coming here and talking about leaving the creativity movement. Next time you come, we'll make it a broader discussion, and we'll talk just about hate groups overall, and we'll talk some atheism shit because we're both atheists.
Yeah, good.
All right, so guys, if you guys have not subbed to Grumpy Old Dude, he does really good work. Go sub to him. He's a new YouTuber, painfully undersubscribed. When people are fighting against hatred, we should support them. So I'm asking all of you, go subscribe to him, check out his videos, support him, do what you got to do to make his work continue because it's really important. So I'll let you show yourself, and then we'll get out of here for the night because I've got like a ton of YouTube work still to do. I've been bad today. I took a nap.
All right. So I am the Grumpy Old Dude, the only real God that can be proven.
I was wondering that. I meant to ask you that. Did you do that on purpose?
Oh yeah.
That's beautiful, man.
Now my videos aren't the best. I'm still learning. I'm not a computer guy. I'm an old smack it with a hammer, punch it in the face type of dude. But I'm learning. My videos are getting to look a little more professional or whatever. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about getting the message out there. I'm literally on a mission to fight hate groups in particular. But like Knox said, come check me out. Hopefully you'll find something you like.
Yeah, and that's a learning process. Like every once in a while, I can't do it anymore because I deleted all the old videos. But every once in a while, I'll go back to my old videos from my first channel just to show people I sucked back then. But it's not about sucking; it's about growing, and it's about working with what you got. And I think that your videos are watchable. They're very watchable, and you do really good work. And people should go subscribe to you. I am glad that I did because checking out your videos was informative for me. So I think that's why we should be watching YouTube videos. Sometimes you just want to have fun and do some stupid shit, but a lot of times, a lot of these videos can really educate you, and you are a perfect person for that. Especially if you aren't too familiar with hate groups or white supremacy. Why not go to a source, a person that lived it, to get your information?
Yeah, because listen, I know what it's about. I lived it. So I'm not going to feed you no stuff that I looked up on the internet or nothing. This is stuff that I know for a fact.
Yeah. And you can't combat that. So like when I talk about Standing Rock and people come at me and I'm like, well, I was there. They get real quiet, real fast, Oh yeah, you was there. I'm not going to talk my bullshit anymore. All right, so thank you so much, old grumpy dude. Great conversation. Thank you everybody for showing up in the chat.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah, and he is part of a group of atheists you should all know about. Because you hang out with Atheist Pastor, Mama Atheist, Nervardia. These people are good people. If you aren't watching their channels, go watch their channels. I just saw one of the best interviews with Arn Ra I ever saw on Atheist Pastor's channel this morning.
Yeah,
it was
that was
fucking
awesome.
brilliant.
That was awesome.
I'm like, man, I got to get Arn on. I mean, I got to get Arn on. All right, so thank you, Grumpy Old Dude. I do have a new Patreon screen, and I just realized, like, I haven't had my personal, real person that I know in my real life that's a patron on my Patreon screen for months. Girl, I'm sorry. I love you. You know I love you. You're on it now. So I'm going to pull that up. I finally got it done after I said I would do it for like a month. So we are going to get to it right now. If I can find it. There you are. All right. So I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Please go subscribe to Grumpy Old Dude and help fight the hatred that we see. Let me get back to my screen. That we see on a daily basis. Holy shit, wrong screen. That we see on a daily basis and that we see growing in this country. And if you're a Trumper and you don't like being called a Nazi, I would just say study it and maybe understand. You don't have to be a Nazi to be a Trumper. You don't. But maybe understand why we think you might be. Yeah. So, you know, and with understanding can come truth. It doesn't mean you have to stop being a Trumper. It just means maybe you change your rhetoric so we won't fucking call you a Nazi anymore. I mean, common sense, right? But thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you, Grumpy Old Dude, for talking about this. This is a hard conversation to have, especially if you've lived it. I can only imagine the hate you get. I can only imagine.
Quite a bit, but apparently I got a little bit of love. Thanks to Dr. History for subbing.
Yeah, Dr. History, yeah, thank you for your good comments in the chat tonight. I will get better at looking at chat. I plan on actually producing, hopefully, more, so I can be more integrated with the chat when I do those things, because when I'm having a conversation, I get sucked in. I don't look over there. So, but thank you, Grumpy Old Dude. And as always, guys, be the conversation, have the hard conversations, and bring truth. We'll see you soon. If I get there. All right, here we go. We'll see you soon.